So tell me first about the LGBT Advisory Panel.
Yeah, so recently the UK government's LGBT Advisory Panel has been disbanded, and that's good because this is, of course, a communist initiative that the Conservative Party were like, yes, of course we'll promote this. We're conservatives.
So was this set up by Labour back in the day?
Nope, this was set up by Theresa May.
Oh,
so in 2017, the UK government did this survey under Theresa May, did a survey of 108,000 people, the largest national LGBT survey in the world to date, and 61% of respondents identified as gay or lesbian, a quarter identified as bisexual, 4% as pansexual, 2% as asexual, and 1% as queer, and 13% of the respondents were transgender. And so the results from this survey were that the LGBT respondents were generally less satisfied with their life than the general UK population. The general UK population rating themselves 7.7 out of 10 on happiness, which is very arbitrary, and the LGBT respondents rating their life satisfaction as 6.5 out of 10 on average.
I'm not even sure if that means anything.
Well, it means that young gender confused people are less happy than other people.
Yeah.
That's life. But I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's just anyway.
I'm not sure what the state needs to do about it.
Yeah, exactly. What exactly is the government's responsibility here? But anyway, more than 2/3 of the LGBT respondents said they'd avoided holding hands with a same-sex partner for fear of negative reaction from others, and at least 2 in 5 respondents had experienced an incident because they were LGBT, such as verbal harassment or physical violence, in the 12 months preceding the survey. Apparently, 2% of respondents had undergone conversion or reparative therapy in an attempt to cure them of being LGBT, with 5% being offered it. So conversion therapy, not exactly a big deal in the UK. Obviously, nothing about it is mandatory. It seems to have been voluntary processes, but they're trying to ban it anyway. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, if you don't have to do it, who cares?
Yeah, like I don't agree with the therapy, but if it's your choice,
yeah,
we should be a liberal country, surely.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to do it.
Yeah.
But anyway, 24% of the respondents said they'd accessed mental health services in the 12 months preceding the survey. So a quarter of them have mental health problems. So, again, these are the people who are less happy than the rest of the population. And it's well, you've kind of defined yourself as the group of people who are confused about your life or have an alternative lifestyle, and a quarter of you have mental health problems. I'm not surprised you rate yourself as less happy than the average person. Just seems not what you'd expect.
Yeah, it's not a condemnation. It's just
no. It's not a condemnation. It's just, yeah, that's what I would have expected. But what's interesting is that 20% almost of the respondents were resident in London, 15% in the southeast, and 12% in the northwest of England, with only 8%, 4%, and 2% being from Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, respectively. So I think that's interesting. How I can't walk around holding hands with my gay other. However, I happen to live in London. So really, what's not progressive about London then?
I mean, which borough? Name the borough.
Yeah, exactly. Name the borough. Name the area. Northwest of England. Where were you? Name the city.
Like I think Douglas Murray spoke about this before. They did a survey and they wanted to try and find some homophobes in Yorkshire or something, and then they found out that most of the reports were coming from London and Birmingham. It's like,
very interesting. Just a coincidence, I'm sure. Anyway, so in July 2018, the Conservatives created an action plan to fix these problems, because if there's one thing that screams Conservative, it's social engineering. And so Penny Mordaunt, a Conservative, wrote that this government has a proud record in advancing equality for LGBT people. From changing the law to allow same-sex couples to marry, to introducing the world's first transgender action plan in 2011, we've been at the forefront of change. That's right. That's what screams Conservative to me. Being at the forefront for change is what Conservatives do. You got it, guys. You're not the Labour Party wearing a blue uniform or anything, right? The UK has been consistently recognised as one of the best countries for LGBT rights in Europe. Then why do anything? This is one of the best countries in Europe, which means, therefore, the world. Oh, we must change. Why? Change from what? Being one of the best? To what? Anyway, the ideological confusion of the Conservative Party was not the purpose of this segment. Anyway, so despite these advances, we know that LGBT people continue to face significant barriers to full participation in public life. Again, it's just Labour rhetoric. Full participation, what does that mean? I'm like, I don't have a spot on the BBC. Does that mean I'm denied full participation as a public commentator?
It's been illegal for, what, over a decade now, at least?
Yeah, at least? I don't
To
know.
ban people from jobs for being homosexual.
Yeah.
In the Equality Act 2010.
There was probably something before that as well.
Yeah, but that's the point. It's like, well, if there are no barriers, what do you mean by full participation? Like,
They
that's
don't. They
not
don't
up to
know.
the state.
It's a Labour gotcha to say, well, yeah, but it's not full thing, is it? And it's like, well, you're just doing it to move the goalposts.
You can't name a single law that disparages them.
But you can say, well, a straight person has this and a gay person doesn't, therefore it's not full. It's a way of just moving goalposts continually, and the Conservatives fall for it because they don't think about their own ideology. Anyway, so this when Penny was the Minister for Women and Equalities, she pushed to have a comprehensive LGBT action plan, which was appointing a national LGBT health advisor to provide leadership on reducing health inequalities that LGBT people face. Again, just all Labour rhetoric. Hey, we're going to talk about health inequalities. Okay, well,
Not different treatment.
yeah, it's okay. That's fine, but how there's going to be an inequality between promiscuous men who are gay and very socially conservative families who live in, like, the rural areas of society. There's going to be a health inequality there. There's necessarily going to be, and it's going to be along the lines of sexually transmitted diseases.
Well, it's along the lines of freedom of choice.
Exactly.
Which is desirable.
It's a
You want them to have
consequence.
their free choice to do that.
Exactly. It's a consequence of free choice. And so if you want to reduce these health inequalities, you're going to have to change someone's behaviour. Either we make it worse so that for the conservative families, or we do something about the behaviour of the single men who live in metropolitan areas.
Force them to all get married and never...
I don't think we should do anything about this. If they, it's their free choice.
But I just love the idea of, like, the LGBT conservative being like, gay men, you're going to get married to each other and you'll never have sex outside, otherwise death. Or something like that, Like,
some sort of Islamic regime, yeah.
yeah, but it's just, we're pro-LGBT, authoritarianism.
What does it look like? Anyway, extending the anti-homophobic, biphobic and transphobic bullying program in school. I don't think you should have a transphobic bullying program in school, Conservatives. I mean, that's not very well worded, but based. Okay.
Joke.
Yeah, obviously a joke. We're against conservative bullying programs. Bringing forward proposals to end the conversion practice of conversion therapy and taking further action on LGBT hate crime. That's right. Conservatives need to expand those hate crime laws. And she says, as a Stonewall straight ally, I've been proud to stand up for LGBT people because I'm running for the Labour Party. That's right. I'm a conservative. And so Theresa May's government in 2018, in response to this, set up the LGBT Advisory Panel. And they literally say, in response to the results of this survey, they felt it was their job to engineer their government to be more, and the country to be more conformable to this fringe minority of people. The panel will be important to our work in delivering the LGBT Action Plan. They'll meet every 3 months. They'll provide advice. It wasn't paid appointments, but obviously there's the prestige and influence that comes with it. They appointed 12 members of the panel. The Minister for Women and Equalities has invited, which was Penny, invited 3 organisations to join the panel, which was Stonewall, the LGBT Foundation, and the LGBT Consortium. Very conservative organisations. Exactly the kind of organisations that the Conservative Party should be working with. And definitely not left-wing activist organisations in any way, shape or form. These organisations represented the breadth and depth of the work within the LGBT voluntary and charitable sector. Just awful activist groups. And 9 of the members will be selected on merit through an open competition process, which would be voluntary and unpaid, but they would get. They were looking for true experts in LGBT equality issues. I don't even know what that means. I mean, what do we mean, doctorate in being gay?
Well, it's not about being gay, is it? I mean, this is the point Douglas Murray continue lakes. So if you really don't know, Douglas Murray is a gay man, but that's it. He's a man who is gay. But being gay is not his, sole identity.
I actually know things about Douglas Murray that aren't reflective of his sexuality at all.
Yeah, so he makes the point in his book, I think it's the the Crowds one.
Madness of Crowds. Yeah.
Madness of Crowds, in which he says there are gay people who are people who just happen to be gay and so forth.
Yeah.
And then there are the kind of people who run these organizations who define themselves as LGBTQI plus blah, 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 he, him, pronouns in the bio, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. But we want to ensure a range of experiences are represented, and we will accept applications from individuals whose focus is on individual sexual orientations or gender identities under the LGBT umbrella. So we only want to hear one side of the story, and that's the radical left-wing side of the story, and we're not going to have opposing viewpoints. Anyway, so you suck, Penny. Moving on, in 2019, Liz Truss was appointed to become the Women's and Equalities Minister. And this is where things started getting exciting, because Liz Truss is not Penny Mordaunt, and clearly Liz Truss didn't vote for the Labour Party. She was appointed for the Minister for Women's Equalities on the 10th of September.
So this is under Boris Johnson as well.
This is under Boris Johnson, and she was elected as a Conservative MP for South West Norfolk in 2010. South West Norfolk being a fairly rural area. She's married. She's got 2 kids. Not exactly a Labour heartland these days. This is sort of traditional Conservative territory, and so it begins. And what begins is the the bonfire of the acronyms or something like this. Basically, by March 2021, so a year and a half into it, 3 of the appointees to the government panel decided to quit because of Liz Truss, and Kemi Badenoch, specifically calling them out by name. Jane Ozanne, a member of the panel, quit on Wednesday, accusing the ministers of creating a hostile environment for LGBT people and claiming that Truss and Badenoch were ignorant on key issues.
Bull. It's no way. No.
More like based on key issues.
No, like Kemi Badenoch and Liz Truss were speaking sense, and you couldn't handle this. That's what went on.
Yeah. They weren't subverted by radical leftists, and you were like, well, hang on a second, I'm not getting what I want because you're not agreeing with all the radical left-wing things I'm saying, and therefore you are creating a hostile environment. It's like, well, good.
What's a hostile environment? People disagreeing with me.
Yes, exactly. And then James Morton, who had been the manager at the Scottish Trans Alliance, had also resigned from the panel. Good. He said that he'd been very concerned for several months that Liz Truss and her junior ministers are not committed to LGBT equality.
Yeah.
It doesn't appear that we're doing anything useful or helpful to help trans people in terms of government policy. And then Ellen Murray, the executive director of Transgender NI, which I think is Northern Ireland, became the 3rd member of the panel to quit, accusing ministers of acting in appalling faith. Oh, that's right. The radical leftists are like, you're acting in bad faith. Oh, really? I'm glad you think so.
As I tried to subvert all of the government.
Exactly. Right. But the thing is, I honestly think that a lot of these people are such midwits that they don't know that they're doing that. Right? I think they honestly just aren't bright enough to understand what they're doing. But she tweeted, "There's precious little patience I have left for the government at this point, but what remains, get your act together. Use the panel for what it was intended and actually prohibit conversion therapy. Stop deporting LGBT refugees. Drop the trans culture war." You are nothing but culture war. That's all this is. The very term LGBT is part of a radical left-wing culture war against traditional gender roles. It's like, drop the culture war. Shut up. Stop shooting back. We've been shooting at you for ages. Haven't you surrendered by now? MPs from across the political divide expressed frustration at the government's delay. Okay, good. Find out which one of those was Conservatives and kick them out of the party. Like, my God. Right? Anyway, Tory backbencher, in fact, we can name some. Tory backbencher Gary Sambrook complained in Commons this week. "I want to send a message to the government that has been 3 years since this ban to promise to ban conversion therapy. We have to get on with it and make sure we deliver on it." Who cares? It's literally the most fringe 2% of the one survey of only gay LGBT people. Like, that was the number of people who'd done conversion therapy.
Yeah, and again, if there's nothing forced about it, well, then what business is it of the state? Conservative.
Yeah.
Like, in what liberal world do we accept that we should be able to force people to stop doing things they want to, if it doesn't harm anyone?
Yes. And, of course, Suzanne Ozanne, was it? I can't remember her first name now. She said Truss and Badenoch were known among the community as the ministers for inequality because they did not understand LGBT people, particularly transgender people.
Good.
Based.
Good. That is the right place to be. Inequality is the result of free choice. They are the ministers for freedom then. Wonderful. Like, that is not a criticism.
That's a great way of describing them, the ministers for freedom. And we covered this in a podcast a little while ago, but they were saying, oh, we're afraid of going back to the days of Thatcher and the days of Section 28. Section 28, for anyone who doesn't know, was a British law that was brought in under Thatcher that just prohibited the promotion of homosexuality by local authorities. And they did this because local authorities kept getting complaints from local families saying, hi, why is there paedophilia advocacy in this school report, in this schoolwork? And they were like, we don't know. And it will forever remain a mystery. Anyway, moving on.
Because those groups like to come under the radar.
Well, the paedophile information exchange did exist for 12 years or something in the UK, and it happened to have been a Labour Party initiative. It happened to have been headed up by Harriet Harman. It just happens that the left wing are constantly promoting these things and these agendas. It's just coincidence piling up. Anyway, right, so we get to today. Yesterday, actually it was. But the advisory panel itself, the LGBT Advisory Panel, has been disbanded, which is great. After the 3 members quit, Liz Truss just emailed the rest of the members or phoned them up saying, well, thanks for your constructive input, but this is gone. We don't need this anymore. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. In the letter seen by the BBC, Liz Truss said, I will also be shortly making an announcement concerning the International LGBT Conference and convening a new body that will take international LGBT rights forward. Maybe you should just not bother.
Like, how is it your problem? You're not the Foreign Office.
Yeah. But also, why, even if you were the Foreign Office, why is it our problem? What happens in other countries?
Like, I might disapprove of it, but this
Sure.
is not the days of colonialism anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to sit here and disapprove about it all day, every day, because it makes good content. But, we're not the empire.
I wish we were, but we're not. So.
Well, I thought we were decolonizing. The rest of the world's actually not our problem. Now it's just these islands that are our problem. And we have many problems, so let's begin at home, right? But this is a good start. Anyway, getting rid of the LGBT Advisory Panel that Theresa May, for some reason, set up. Good start. But what else needs to be disbanded? Well, I would suggest, Liz Truss, perhaps you want to look at the very nature of what it is to have a Minister for Women and Equalities, because this is, of course, something that was set up by Tony Blair. Do you agree with Tony Blair? Do you agree with Tony Blair's attempt to socially engineer the United Kingdom? And not just socially either, but just in every aspect, in fact. This was created by Blair in 1997, when he became Prime Minister, as a means of prioritising women's issues across government. Should we not just have government issues? Does it have to be particular to women?
Yeah. But this is Tony Blair's viewpoint, which is,
Yeah.
It's not that there's any law stopping you. There are just inequalities in society,
Yeah.
and therefore they need to be addressed.
Yes.
And it's like, but that doesn't mean anything, you moron.
No. And if you're the Minister for Freedom, you expect inequalities. But anyway, so this had carried on. David Cameron just gave it a new name. He accepted the thing should exist and gave it a new name. And I'm of the opinion that this needs to be abolished in the same way that you abolished this advisory panel. And then anything else that Tony Blair did, you could work on abolishing that too, because honestly, I think the one goal that any Conservative government moving forward should have is literally undoing Tony Blair's entire legacy. He screwed up this country and everyone can see it. Everything comes back to him and his government. This needs to go.
I don't think she'd even disapprove, because I don't know if you've seen
I'm
her
sure she'd
talking
agree.
about it. The people ask, how come you're the Women's and Equalities Minister and you do other things? She's like, yeah, well, it's nice to have actual work. And it's just like, well, if a minister just did that, there wouldn't be much to do. And it's the same with Karen Badenoch. I know she's like a junior minister, but she does a whole bunch of other stuff. Because she's like, well, why would I waste my time just on this?
Yeah.
And so,
But I mean,
in which case, why have the department?
Yeah, but just ask yourself, what's this all about? Why should the state have a role in creating sort of social or financial equality between various categories of people? Did you create the category of people, LGBT? Did you invent this? If you didn't invent this, who did invent this? Whose inheritance are you continuing? And it turns out it's a radical left-wingers, because Tony Blair, he was centrist. He was, he's the right wing of the Labour Party. It's like, yeah, you say that, but I watched an a speech he gave a while ago at a Labour Party conference where he was essentially talking to the radical left in the Labour Party. He was like, look, right, I know that you want 100%, but I don't think we can get 100%. So I'm going to get us 30% of the way there. And then we're 30% closer to the goal that we all share. And it's like, yeah, but I don't share his goal of
Socialism. No.
socialism. Yeah, I don't think that's.
In which case, why should the Conservatives conserve that 30%?
Exactly.
Knock that 30% down.
Exactly. Go back to being a kind of more traditional style of British government, and I think you'll find a lot of these problems start resolving themselves. If you enjoyed this segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can watch the full broadcast live every weekday at 1 p.m. UK time on lotuseaters.com.